资料不太多，你先那个。
Thank you for accepting our interview.
Thank you for being interested in our country.
So we only stay in Beijing, or you plan to travel other cities?
I was also to the Davos Forum, which was not in Beijing. It was in
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. You just come back from Tianjin. Basically, our media house is like the counterpart of the economists in China. Our main readership is intellectuals, officials, and some managers in private sectors. Yeah, so basically they are looking upon the economy, financial, and the public policy, of course, international relations. Yeah. And during the interview, Ms. Deng will mainly propose the question for you, but maybe I will add one or two follow-up questions. But you can only guessing at her because of the or devices surrounding. Yeah.
这个麦有我扫了，左边的麦，所以
然后你们俩说话随便我。
Could you please test it maybe for the microphone 1 or 3?
1, 2, 3, and that one. 1, 2, 3.
这样可以吗？这样可以吗？
好 ，OK。
Okay, let's start.
等会儿。
哦，那边还没录呢。
Sorry，我们那个得关上。然后得关上。对，把那个。
Oh, we're just turning off the air conditioning.
AC, yes.
We know that you just came back from the Davos Summit, and you talked about technological innovation and competition. Estonia and China are both leaders in the e-commerce market, and you met with Chinese leaders to enhance cooperation in this respect. What can we expect from the consensus that you reached? Are you going to launch any new products?
Actually, in Estonia, we trust quite a lot our private sector to cooperate with your country. For example, one of Estonian unicorns, we have 4, which is very high number for a country of 1 million people. One of them, for example, has also a Chinese investor. And also one of our aeroplane repair and maintenance companies has just been bought by a Chinese company to expand this. They have a really good reputation globally, and we are very proud to cooperate in economy this way. And we share very much the views of your President and Prime Minister that we need free economic space and rule of law for our businesses to work together. And our job is to provide this rule of law and this good economic climate. And this is what we agreed to do, so that our companies could prosper both here and in Estonia.
Are there any central principles when you make policies or new laws in attracting tech firms to come to Estonia and flourish?
First of all comes the understanding that we are part of the European Union. So, for example, all European Union data protection laws, intellectual property laws, these laws apply also in Estonia, and we hope that companies who compete on our markets do not have these kind of support of their governments, which would make them more advantageous than those who only have to operate on private company. So we hope that we can also understand the subsidy policy of each country. And thereafter comes our digital environment. Estonia actually is really good in creating a law space so that both businesses and the customers feel safe and secure. For example, globally there is quite a lot of discussion whether big internet companies have done everything right or maybe not. In Estonia you have a legal space which defines what is right and what is not, and therefore companies can easily grow and prosper, and thereafter nobody will come and ask questions because legal space is set and clear. And this is unique about Estonia. You don't see this kind of rule setting for technological companies and entrepreneurs anywhere else. And it only doesn't touch upon digital technologies. Estonia has very good genome law, which allows also biotech companies to work on genome data at population level. This data can be used for scientific analysis, even for commercial developments. Of course, at the same time, protecting the identity of the people who have donated their genetic information. And Estonian doctors can receive, if their patients so wish, the results of their genome mapping, so to advise people about their health risks. So we are also proud of our preventive medicine capacity, and we are very much looking in both these areas, digital technologies and biotech, those investors who can use the backbone our state provides to their and our people's advantages.
We know that digitalization of every aspect of Estonian people's life can bring a lot of benefits. But is this also part of the government's solution to Estonia's population decrease problem after Estonia joined the EU?
Estonia has not lost people anymore after we joined the European Union. There is no considerable loss of our workforce. We have 60,000 people working in Finland and a few thousands elsewhere, but we see now a continuous trend for people to return to Estonia because the average salaries have grown. But indeed, it is very easy for Estonians to return to their country because all public services, including voting, has been available for them while they have been working away. And after all, you cannot say that the country is depopulating if people go and work in the European Union, because that's why we have the European Union free market of jobs. Everybody in Europe can work anywhere in European Union. And this is an agreement which we respect. But if you have this kind of environment, then you need your citizens to have a mean and opportunity to keep in touch with your country. Estonia is at the forefront of providing this sort of support to our citizens working elsewhere.
And Estonia has been using euro as its currency since 2011.
Yes.
But recently the Estonian government pulled back from the plan to issue a sovereign cryptocurrency.
This has never been a plan, I'm sorry, I don't know where you get that information.
Oh, okay.
We have never discussed any cryptocurrency issuance. What we have been discussing has been blockchain use for Estonian e-services. Blockchain as technology has nothing to do with cryptocurrencies, which have only tainted the technological advances of blockchain.
Okay. Then we have seen a surge in right-wing politics in EU, and you recognized before that the crises, a number of crises that EU is facing cannot be solved alone by any European country. We have to work together. But do you think that adopting right-wing political policies and going backwards in the process of globalization is the right approach to address these issues?
First of all, would you clarify what do you mean by right-wing? Many of the populist parties actually in their economic policy, where I feel quite a strong expert myself, actually lean very much towards leftist politics. I think the common denominator, what you are talking about, is the surge in people being afraid of global movement of people towards Europe and maybe also from Europe, and the demographic problems of Europe. And this is perfectly legitimate worry for people to sense, and it is for all colors of politicians to offer solutions which will make sure that people feel safe, protected, but at the same time we all know that Europe is open to lawful migration. It's just that it has to be lawful. Nobody wants to close Europe. The right-wing or left-wing or even populist parties, they do not seek so simplistic solutions. Most of them accept that we need lawful migration. The worry is just that sometimes you find it very difficult to send back those who came by illegal means, and also when there are conflicts in the world, we see huge surges of asylum seekers. So we need to work, and Europe is working with other regions globally, namely Africa, for example, trying to help Africa to create jobs for their own people on their own continent, because we feel assured that this way everybody globally will be happier. Europe is very much about values and protecting its values not only within Europe, but globally, and also projecting these values. One of them is definitely the individual freedom of people to choose where to live and where to work. But of course there has to be a lawful way of managing if there are so many people willing to come to Europe to work.
And I want to ask a question on the Estonia. We know that Estonia is the first country to adopt an electronic system to hold elections.
Yes.
And but the latest presidential election in the United States was suspected of being interfered by foreign actors. And has the Estonian government taken any preventive measure to stop this to occur?
First of all, nobody uses this kind of electronic voting model like Estonia does. Yes, there have been voting machines tried in other countries, but our system is unique.
Mm-hmm.
It is based on the unique digital identity which every citizen uses daily to use all kinds of public services. And it would be extremely hard to pick out which person was currently going into the system to vote, if you look from the outside and try to spy, or which went simply to file their tax declaration. So it would be extremely hard to get the beacon out of the system. Secondly, the interference you are talking about was mostly to the people's minds, hacking the people's minds. And this, of course, is not part of an electronic voting system. This is a simple system where you log into the system recognizes you as for every digital service, and we have thousands in Estonia, and then it gives you the list of the people you can vote for, and you vote, and your vote will go into the voting pool, and the link between your being in the system and your vote is lost thereafter. So it is anonymous and safe. And it is safer than paper voting, because if you vote on the paper, and for example you sending it to the ballot boxes, then actually you don't get any feedback. Our electronic voter gets a feedback. Also, if you vote on paper, you wouldn't know whether your vote was counted. If you get the feedback electronically, you know your vote was counted. In addition, something may go wrong, your handwriting may be bad. This cannot happen in the electronic voting system. So I admit that every system has to make everything what they can to protect themselves from hacking, and we have been very successful in that, and it's a relatively old system already. Still nobody has hacked into it. But it is also important to recognize that paper voting has its own risk. Electronic voting covers most of them.
You talked about the hijacking of people's minds, and we know Estonia is facing physical security threats as well from the east. And in the meantime, the Trump administration has required the NATO allies to share more costs. We know that Estonia stands by the 2% expenditure target, and it has met its goal. But do you think, on the whole, Trump administration's attitude will undermine NATO's strength as a whole?
I can tell you one thing. Trump's administration, since its early days, has shown very clear US value-based foreign policy towards our region. We have had high-level reassurance visits from Paul Ryan, from Vice President Pence. People have come to our country, been interested in our country and also our capacity to protect ourselves. And indeed, we do stick to the 2%, but this is because every NATO member has an obligation, according to Article 3, to make sure their own territory, first and foremost, is protected. Article 5 is an additional layer on that, which will say that if somebody is attacked, then there will be a support from everybody. NATO has a 100% track record over the last 70 years, and I'm quite sure that this will continue also long into the future. We feel very well protected.
Yeah, this year marks the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Republic, and I think in the past century, the Estonian people has faced currently with a notorious historical path. What do you think, or by what extent would you think the historical background will influence the mentality or the policy, the mindset to implementing a diplomatic policy for the current situation?
I don't think that historical parallels ever come back. What we can say is that rules-based international security architecture dates back to the Helsinki Final Acts as we know it nowadays, and it has been later layered by additional security elements so that all countries, including the smallest ones, feel safe and secure. In addition, we have our multilateral cooperation indeed through EU and NATO. This is unprecedented. Previously, you couldn't have anything like that. And we are very proud that we know and can tell to our people, Estonia will never again be alone.
Yeah, recently, before traveling to China, we noticed that you also have traveled to Ukraine and to care about their situation. Now, would you support the idea that the NATO or the European Union should expand a step further to more eastern countries like Ukraine or other the countries in Balkans and Peninsula?
I think this is not for me to have a personal opinion alone. And if I have it, I do voice it to my partners and allies, and we discuss these things and these issues. We have to come to the conclusion that the countries which want to join, let's take the European Union, that they do fill all the conditions and terms. There are many conditions on rule of law, democracy, free media, etc., which every country aspiring to join the European Union has first to meet and then promise to meet forever. And if countries which are aspiring to be EU members can build this kind of democracies, it will always be first and foremost good for their own people, for their own development, because as you here very well know, rule of law guarantees also economic development. Europe also sets high standards on media freedom and freedom of speech. These also have to be applicable in these countries who wish to join the European Union, and it's extremely important for European Union that you stick to these criteria. This way you do a lot of good to your own country's development, and you don't always have to think about the dates when you can join some multilateral body. On the other hand, I do wish good success and luck to all those countries who are aspiring to join the European Union.
Your Prime Minister envisioned under the One Belt One Road initiative, there can be a railway corridor linking a Chinese city and your capital, Tallinn. Are there any talks between governments to realize this project? And as I understand, this railway will cross a large part of the Russian land. How will Estonia negotiate with Russia to build this railway?
What Estonia currently does is it is building a railway through Latvia, Lithuania, Poland to Central Europe. We feel this is our part, and of course we would very much like to cooperate more with our Russian neighbors. Unfortunately, right now we do not feel that we can be confident that either economic or political climate in Russia is predictable enough for us to undertake big investment projects. But of course we have absolutely nothing against connecting the existing rail links, which after all we know there are between your country and our country all through the Russia. And if Russia makes their links more efficient, I'm quite sure that everybody will benefit. But every country will have to do their own homework for these projects to be realized. Estonian ports and logistics centers are really good quality, and even without this railway, your e-commerce companies work through Estonia towards Western Russia quite a lot. So there is a cooperation ways and means. We have also discussed and proposed a memorandum of understanding in the Belt and Road context on e-issues and electronic and cyber developments in this area and this region. So we are hoping that we can soon conclude something tangible and continue to create the space of action for our companies on both sides.
Talking about the connectivity issue, in the past 1 and 2 years, there are some intense debate about China's approach, the 16+1 approach towards Central and Eastern European countries. And even some Western European politicians would argue that the 16+1 platform seems tend to undermine or to erode the solidarity of EU. During your interactions with the Chinese company, but have you ever felt this kind of a feeling or this kind of the tracks that China want to bypass some regulation or some criteria set by EU and only focusing to make benefit from Eastern or Central Europe?
I absolutely don't have to pay any attention to this kind of gossip because, frankly speaking, European Union is covered by the public procurement rules, and also rule of law in Europe means that you cannot discriminate or, on the other hand, be too positive about one type of capital. So I do hope that Chinese capital coming to Europe does realize that in Europe we have the conditions which guarantee you equal treatment, never better treatment, and I trust into the European Union policies and we actually apply them in Estonia. so we implement them correctly, and therefore under these conditions, as we have always said, you are very welcome also to the railway, Rail Baltic building project, for example. There will be public procurement for every stage of the work, and if your companies participate, they will be treated as everybody else, equally.
But we know that Estonian farmers has protested against some EU rules.
Estonian farmers love European Union most of all. European Union is 79% popular in Estonia, so they have not been Estonian farmers.
Okay.
It's quite common for some other countries' farmers always to blame EU rules, but sometimes these rules even are not EU rules. But in Estonia, farmers, I have to say, they are very much for European Union. They sometimes complain that the level of support for new member states may be lower than for the older member states. But these differences are being evened out as the living standard in Estonia is growing. Estonian farmers really like the European system. Of course, now when the milk quotas have been abolished, Estonian milk producers, and milk is the biggest element of our agriculture and production due to our wet and rather cold climate, they are very happy also to work towards Asia, towards China market. We produce really high quality milk powder, which is accepted here at the necessary level to also use it for children's food. So we are very proud to cooperate with your country in our agricultural sector.
What is the main spirit of the Estonian wisdom of adapting to the EU law? Because after 2004 and 2005, several countries has been newly joined the EU, right? But it seems that Estonia can be, say, one of the better countries integrated with the whole EU system compared maybe with Hungary, with Poland. Maybe they have some problem. So my question is, what's the reasons behind this very strong consensus in Estonian society to support and adapt and to enhance the governance capability or the practice of in the civil society adapted to the EU system?
As you can notice, Estonia is one of the fastest growing economies in the European Union, definitely above the European Union average. We are converging towards the European Union average. You cannot do it if you do not apply the rules and regulations which we have commonly agreed. And you have to be predictable also for the future, that you keep applying them. And this is what has made Estonians actually very enthusiastic about guaranteeing our investors, our business partners, that we do stick by the rule book which we have commonly agreed for our euro.
So basically, you mean the stickness to the euro standard is the main reason for the high growth of the sustainable growth, economic growth, or on the other hand, is mainly because of the Estonia has been developed very well. So the majority of the people in your country will support to adapting the EU rules.
No, there are other elements to Estonian good development, and big part of it is what we talked in the beginning, this legal space setting for technology. But indeed, predictability of economic climate is the best guarantee of economic development. Everybody knows it. It's simply economic rules. I mean, there's nothing to discuss even. It's as simple as A and B. I mean, it's kind of basics, and our people, of course, understand these basics really well.
We know you are the first female president of Estonia, and as a female in the high echelon of Estonian politics, have you encountered any major challenges? And we know that Me Too movement in China
I've never been a male president. I cannot answer that question. I've always been only a woman. I cannot answer. I cannot say what challenges I am facing relate to me being a woman, or me being not woman, or being blonde, or being brunette, or being tall, or being small, or being clever, or being not so clever, or being right-wing or left-wing. What I want to say is it doesn't matter what sex you are, what gender you are. What is important is what you think and what you are ready to say. This is what matters. Do you care about your people? Do you care about the future of your country? Your gender does not come into this discussion in any way.
But for a woman in the workplace, we know the Me Too movement is also causing a ripple effect in China, but it's also encountered many obstacles. As a successful woman, do you have any advice to offer to the Chinese women as a group?
I think globally I've noticed that there are sad stories of women thinking they are somehow not entitled to speak out if something happened. And as politicians we are responsible that women and girls always feel that they can speak out. There cannot be this kind of wall of silence which is very difficult to pass over or pass through. This is the politician's job, to make sure that this does not exist. And it's very good that people with these experiences have come out. They are very brave people. Everybody, I believe, in the free world is thinking about this, how to make sure that these things will not happen. Part of which is simply teaching people that this is not a dumb thing. It is not something you can do. And we know lots of societies are still quite repressive about women's rights. I think it's our common goal to make sure that this is not the case anymore. And we have quite a high number of male politicians strongly supportive of the women's rights as well. So it's not a sisterhood issue, it's the humankind issue that everybody has their rights in this world.
Yes, you have always championed the idea for even a relatively smaller country can still achieve the great thing. And I think one of the best attractions for Estonia in the world, especially among young people, is your e-residence system. And I'm wanting to know the spirit or the philosophy behind this network. Because it seems that Estonian government are wisely to use this platform as a leverage to expand the coverage of the human resource that you can mobilize, and the people around the world can reach you. Would your government or in the following years has a plan to expand the coverage of the e-residence quotas to the world?
E-residents can come to Estonia if they are in the startup sector, want to set up in tech. We have a special startup visa system, so it is already now possible, and there are no quotas, by the way. I mean, if you have a startup visa, you can come. If you want to work in a company which is a startup and growing really quickly, you can come. There are no quotas. All European Union citizens, of course, can come, but for these startup companies, even everybody from everywhere else can come. And of course, quite many people get contact with Estonia through the e-residency. It also creates a high number of people globally who know Estonia, and we believe that being known in global world by something positive also adds to your feeling of security as a country, because everybody cares about those they know, and it's difficult to care about those who you do not know. So it's a many-faceted tool for Estonian government. But it started out because we were so tired of explaining to everybody what does it mean, Estonian digital ID. We decided to open it to everybody else who wants to use it, and this is how it started.
And I want to ask a question about the Baltic states. We know that Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania are three states bordering on the border of Russia and Europe. The integration of the Baltic states, will it bring a lot of benefits to Estonia? And
Integration where?
Sorry?
Integration where?
The three countries
of the Baltic states.
You cannot say or measure in any way how exactly you cooperate or integrate with the other Baltic states. I mean, there is the whole European Union. And of course we have the Nordic-Baltic Cooperation Group, which works even closer together. And then within the European Union you have the Baltic Sea Strategy, and we are all part of the Baltic Sea Strategy, all of us who are around the Baltic Sea, Nordic countries, Baltic countries, Poland, Germany. So you see, within the European Union we are working together, 500 million people intertwined, so you cannot bring out so many regional benefits. But of course there are pan-Baltic companies, and many Scandinavian companies also operate in all three Baltic states. This is true. On the other hand, it's unfair to say that on the Russians' western border there are only these three Baltic states. You must not forget that there are many others. There are Ukrainians, there are Georgians, there are Moldovans, and we want to work with all those countries as well to help them to achieve their dreams as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. President. Thank you for your very candid and comprehensive answer to all our questions. Now we will clarify to our readers about the S-coin idea. Yeah, it's not a sovereignty currency,
but it's very, very weird. I mean, globally, because what we were discussing was using the blockchain technology. And who is blockchain technology? We have three means of identifying ourselves to our state. One is ID card, one is mobile ID, one is smart ID. And this is a fourth opportunity which will be tech neutral. meaning you issue to every Estonian, let's say, million S coins or S tokens or whatever you call them, and then you just use them to identify.
So this is a technical approach rather than a financial.
I cannot be. I mean,
Okay.
it's a ridiculous notion that you issue a currency without an economy. I'm wholly with Warren Buffett and every central banker globally and all Estonians.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity. I think this. Yeah.
And if you publish it, can you send me the?
Of course, yes, we will do that. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. 很刺激吧？打乒乓球啊！你之前有看过他的采访视频吗？没有是吧？
我看到他的文字。
文字不准，要看采访视频，你就知道一个人的这个 mentality。他这个像打乒乓球就抽快球的，他觉得你的提问有任何一点的，他就啪就打过来。他竟然在这个，他是在这个 auditor， 他是一个审计院的人，他是这个那个努力的，防御性很强的，挺好玩的。
要补什么吗？
补什么吗？
问题，你觉得？
没有，差不多问了。
不是，我说你补他的问题。
对啊，你要不要把我问的问题问一次？
哦，行
对，
啊。
趁着机器都在，然后你还记得我问了什么些问题吗？
有一个
e-residence 一个，然后那个，
王进把你这样。
还有那个人怎么感受那个加入欧盟？
你坐他对面，
然
后跟他一块儿。
我录还是他录？我录会很奇怪，你看两个人一起来。
他录吧，
不是得他录，你从日中就没出来。
哦，我知道啊，对。好，那个几个问题吧，一个就是那个16+1的问题，就 e-residence 是一个，就是 e-residence 这个 philosophy 背后是什么东西？然后这个然后那个16+1会不会 undermine the solidarity of EU？ how should you evaluate that？ 对，然后这个还有什么？还有那个就是we using the past tortuous roots of the Estonian people in history, historically will influence your current decision for making the diplomatic or strategic policy. 然后还有什么？我记得我有3、4个问题吧。然后
你说话。
还有一个问题，还有一个就是那个就是这个Estonia has been one of the most one of the countries that integrated with the EU system most well done or something like that. 然后 what's the reason behind it? Why your country can have this kind of the consensus for adapting to the euro, because there might be some cost during the process, and we also see some backlash in the society like Hungary or Poland towards EU, and but why? 反正大概就这样，随便说吧，
来一个一个来，
意思就是那意思。
你那麦的线再往里藏一藏，刚才没那么明显，就是那个麦那儿。
这个。
对，线长线再往，对，好，现在就行。好 ，OK。
4个。
来，补录问题。补录问题。别看他。你先接个反应，然后。
这样。
不是，
他跟你说话，
一直看他。
好的。
就是跟刚才提问一样。
Estonia has promoted e-residency and other aspects of digitalization of Estonian governance. What is your logic behind this e-Estonian program? And do you want to use this channel to attract more talent to Estonia and accumulate more human resources?
好，
这样子。
我再导一遍，你再来一遍那个。我觉得。
我再顺是吧？
对。
好吧。
e-residence 不是 e-Estonia，e-residence.
Okay.
It's one of the best attraction for Estonia idea in the world. Yeah.
E-residency is one of the best institutional innovations of Estonia. What is the logic or rationale behind the e-residency project? Do you want to use this as a channel to attract more talents from all over the Europe and aggregate more human resources?
OK。
Okay.
第二个。
Estonia is one of the countries within EU that has reached a high level of integration. 我再来一遍啊。
或者你可以说从什么2004年、2005年以来，当很多中东的国家加入 EU 以来，然后看起来什么表现最好，就可以用一个比较你觉得比较自然的表述，就包括背景交代，随便。
Estonia has been one of the
since 就是你的，对我的问题他不知道怎么问，这很正常。
别摁笔啊。
或者你换个问题先。
行。Since Estonia joined EU, it has smoothly been integrated into this institutional framework. Why do you think Estonia has been able to do that? We have seen some backlash against the idea of EU in countries like Hungary and Poland.
行，可以了，我觉得这样就可以了。然后就可以切到他的话了，就可以了，就可以了。
第三个。
China promoted the idea of 16+1, and Estonia has been part of it. Do you think this idea will be
这个问题就得这样问，这个问题不能直接问他说那个石油压力到底有没有？你得说在西欧有人这么说，然后 what's your take on it？ 对，就不能我们自己提一个问题说那个这个东西是不是在那个有点政治不正确，这里得从问一次。
Some observers in Western Europe say that China promoted the idea of 16+1, and this is a challenge to the European Union. Do you think this is true?
最后一题。
不多。
等会儿 Soviet Union. Estonia reached its independence in 1991, and it has embarked on a path of economic development and political liberation since then. But we have seen increasing threat from the east. Do you think the historical trajectory of Estonia will shadow the future of Estonian diplomacy and economic development?
OK。
你觉得最后这成吗？
感觉他表情有点飘忽，内容没什么问题，就表情有点不自信，就有点那个感觉你的表情一直在寻思这话怎么说，就你一直在盯着天花板，就看特别明显啊。对，你就同样话重说一次就行了。这个它是这样，它是独立100周年了，然后你可以说 to achieve your re-independence in 1991，因为它是号称是1918年的独立嘛，对，但是那一次独立了，所以他们今年我刚刚说就是说今年100周年，就其实他们过去100年挺惨的，就是他们是就独立之后又被德国人占了，然后又被苏联人反复拉锯搞了好几次，对，所以那个没事，我就背景补充，你可以从1991年开始问。Since you get the independence again， 然后什么 you embark 什么东西。
Since Estonia regained its independence in 1991, it has embarked on a very different path of economic development, political liberation than the past. But do you think the historical experiences and trajectory of Estonia will have an impact on the future development of this country?
OK，好，挺好。
好，
谢谢。
收工。
这个